Hey guys, today we are going to multiply and divide with integers. So we are moving on from adding and subtracting, and multiplying and dividing is actually a lot of people's favorites. Compared to adding and subtracting, it seems to be a little more simple, so hopefully you think it is more simple and that we will be good to go. So in your table of contents, multiply and divide, integer rules is page 16 and 17. And then here are your notes. So you did the adding and subtracting versions of this. So now we're going to look at multiplying and dividing. So I'll give you a second, pause it, copy these things down, and then when you're ready, push play, and we will begin. So just like when we add and subtract, one thing that we have to look at when we multiply or divide with positive and negative numbers is we have to obviously look at those signs. So we have to look at the numbers, we have to see if they are positive and negative. Now, one thing that is nice about multiplying and dividing is that the rules for positives and negatives are the same, okay? So I'm gonna write like right here, multiplication and division So when you add and subtract, those rules are not the same, because if you remember, when you had an addition problem, if they were the same signs, you added the numbers and then you kept the sign. So if they were both positive or both negative, you would add those numbers together. Then if they were different signs, if you had positives and negatives, you would subtract the two numbers, biggest minus the smallest, and then you would ask yourself, do I have more positives or do I have more negatives? If you had more positives, your answer was positive, and if you had more negatives, your answer was negative. Then when you got to subtraction, you kind of had one more step. The very first thing that you had to do was change that problem to addition. So every time you are given a subtraction problem, you need to change it to addition. Then after you change it to addition by leaving the first number the same, subtraction changes to addition, and then that last number changes to whatever the opposite sign is. So for example, if it was positive 10, it would change to negative 10. If it was negative 10, it would then change to positive 10. So that's what we've been doing, that's what you have been doing, and hopefully you have been doing it well. Make sure you are. And then now we are looking at multiplication and division. So when you multiply and divide with positives and negatives, it's nice because the rules are the same, okay? So the same as in they're the same as each other, not the same as in adding and subtracting. So when you multiply and both numbers are the same signs, your answer is going to be positive. So here, negative 6 times negative 3 equals positive 18. A negative times a negative equals a positive. The same thing like normal, what you guys would call regular math. If you had two positives, your answer is positive. So this is when you multiply or when you divide. The same signs, if they're both positive or if they're both negative, your answer is going to be positive. In the same way, if you had different signs, your answer is going to be negative. So here I have negative 6 times positive 3. Since I have a negative and a positive, my answer is negative. Here, 6 times negative 3. So this time my 6 is positive and my 3 is negative. But still, since they are different signs, my answer is negative. Okay, so if we look here, 5 times negative 2, we're going to multiply like normal. 5 times 2 is 10. And then I have to look, do I have the same signs or different signs? These are the same signs, so since they're the same signs, my answer is positive. Here, negative 4 times negative 3. 4 times 3 is 12. They're both negatives, so they have the same signs, so that answer is going to be positive. Then if we go across, 5 times 2 is 10. They're both positive, same signs, my answer is positive. 4 times 3 is 12. Same signs, my answer is positive. Here, negative 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. And then I look, I have a negative and a positive. since they're different signs, my answer is now negative. Same thing here, 4 times 3 is 12. And they're different signs, so my answer is negative. Here, first number is positive, second number is negative. Again, multiply like normal, 5 times 2. Since they're different signs, my answer is negative. Another way to kind of help you remember it, because people mix up the rules, like they see this and they're like, okay, that's easy, but then when I give them a bunch of different problems with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, especially when we have fractions and decimals, those rules kind of get jumbled. So one thing that I've known it for years, but someone taught me, is this little guy. His name is Mr. Sleepy Bear because his eyes are closed. They're negative signs. His mouth is a positive sign. And he has 2 ears. On his ears, there's a multiplication, and then there's a division. So, his name is Mr. Sleepy Bear because his eyes are closed. And his ears are multiplying and dividing because he only works for multiplication and division. If you use him for adding and subtracting, you will get your answers wrong, okay? But this is just another way to help you. So I'll show you how it works. So here we have a positive 4 and a negative 3. Since we're multiplying, we can use Mr. Sleepy Bear. So you're going to take your fingers, and you're going to cover up the type of number we have. So here we have a positive 4, so I'm going to cover up a positive. And then we have a negative 3, so I'm going to cover up a negative. Whatever is left is your answer. So since we have a negative left, our answer is negative. So 4 times 3 is 12. Again, we had a negative left, so our answer is negative. Here, make sure you can still see. You can't? Now you can. Okay, so 9 times negative 3. So it's a positive 9 times a negative 3. Again, the negative is what's left, so my answer is negative. 9 times 3 is 27. Here I have a negative 7, positive 4, so my answer is negative 28. So, he's silly, but he works, and that is Mr. Sleepy Bear. And again, he only works with multiplying or dividing. He does not work with adding and subtracting. Down here, you have 3 digits, and you can still multiply. You know order of operations. You know these rules now, so you can do it. The first thing that you do is just multiply the first 2 digits to get your answer. So 5 times 2 is 10. And then if we look here, we have a negative times a negative. So if you use Mr. Sleepy Bear, you'd cover up a negative, and you're left with a positive. And since you're left with a positive, you know that answer is positive 10, okay? Then I'm just going to bring down the rest of the problem. And 10 times 7 is going to be 70. Here I have 5 times negative 2. So I have a positive and a negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. And 5 times 2 is 10. And I'm going to bring that down. So now I have negative 10 times 7. So negative 10 times a positive 7 is going to leave me with a negative number. And 10 times 7 is 70. So my final answer is negative 70. So those are your rules for multiplying. Quick, simple. Make sure you write down the rest of these problems and write these answers in on your notes, because remember, I want you to get credit for everything. This is page 16. I'm going to flip it over, and this is page 17. So you don't have this paper, so you're copying it down in your notebook. But again, our rules for multiplying and dividing when it comes to positives and negatives, our answers are the same. So if we have the same signs, they're both positive or they're both negative, my answer is going to be positive. And then if they are both different signs, we have a positive and a negative, or a negative and a positive, my answer is going to be negative. So again, I'm just going to draw Mr. Sleepy Bear. Just a reminder, he only works with multiplying and dividing. And here we just divide like normal. 12 divided by 4 is 3. And then I have 2 negatives. Since I have 2 negatives, I have the same sign. So my quotient is positive. Or I can look over here on Mr. Sleepy Bear, 2 negatives, and my answer is a positive. So negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. Then here, 12 divided by 4, 2 positives, same signs, the answer is positive. Here I have negative 12 divided by 4. So those are different signs. So my quotient is negative. My answer is negative because I have negative 12, positive 4. And that's going to equal a negative. So I'm left with a negative 3. Same thing here, 12 divided by 4 is 3. Positive divided by negative equals a negative. Okay, so you are going to finish this paper. Again, this is quicker. A lot of people like multiplying and dividing a lot more, but you are finishing these notes for today, and then you will do your homework. So I hope you have a good day, and I will see you soon.